everybody, welcome back to the Bill and Ray Show. I'm Bill out in the torch shop. If you're new to the channel, I'm out here to make a marble. And today we're going to use some silver foil. I used this in a previous one recently, but I'm going to do something different with it. So let's see what we can come up with. This one is going to be built starting out just on full-size rod here. And we build these big marbles on. And sometimes I do some ribbon canes or some other steps, but this is going to just go straight from the main rod into a construction. I just brushed off my torch so it's throwing a bunch of little sparks. Periodically use a wire brush on the face of the torch to clean it up. But this Red Max in particular has a tendency to throw some carbon out. You can build up carbon on the face. So just starting out with the raw cut end. Get this cleaned up. So in some sense, the general mechanics of this marble construction is going to be pretty basic. Something that I've done a lot of, but there are still mysteries, even to me, as to how this will turn out. As to whether it's going to open in the center, or whether it's really comes together in the middle. A lot of geometry goes on inside these marbles that even I don't know exactly how it's going to go. But we're going to get into this starting off with kind of a wedge-shaped end, so we get a bit of a gather. And then we want just a lollipop, but it's also cut down at an angle. So we'll cook out some of these chill marks. I'm going to be using some silver foil, and I've cut it up into bite-sized pieces. And I've got it underneath, I've got an anti-static bag here with some foil inside there. But the foil is obviously can blow away pretty easily. It can be kind of difficult to keep under control or not lose it. But as I did before, I'm going to try and build up some of the silver foil onto the face. And as it does that, it's going to just kind of splatter into little bitty pieces. Oops. That kind of went around the back side there. I'm going to try and kind of repeat some of that on the other side. Heat up this face and pick up some of that. Seems like when this glass is pretty hot, it just kind of instantly disappears. And then some of this I'll pick it up and then hit it with the flame, and it just kind of turns into a bunch of little tiny glass beads on there. Glass beads. How about silver beads? Some people have used little silver filings for this kind of a effect. Okay, now this glass is pretty well cooled down to where I'm going to do some gold fuming on top of that silver. So we can get this gold to get down a little color. What I want to do is get this gold to be a bit of a gradient. I want it kind of strong out on the end. And a little bit of a fade as it comes across there. Okay, now we've got some goodness in there, and we need to trap it. So I'll just use clear glass. I've got a 3mm rod here. I'm just going to do a whole series of dots. If we can do this. Kind of taking a bit of an angle and just walking down a line of dots. So as often is the case with these marbles, here in the first few moments, I've already kind of locked in some effects. And I won't know exactly what this is doing until it's out of the kiln tomorrow, but I'm kind of liking what I'm seeing right now. Now this, as I get farther out here, may eventually become kind of up in the lens space of the marble. or it may not have much effect at all. Okay, that's looking pretty wild just like that. Just turn that into a pendant and call it good. But we are going to cook this down and give it a twist. Okay, press this a little bit down to a smaller flame and try and burn in. Now, because that the silver, actually the foil turned into little specks and a certain amount of kind of fumed, I don't want to cook this and burn out all of that. I need to keep some of that going. So then we're going to twist this. So we're twisting and kind of folding some of that material on the face to become interior design. This is one of those things where this is, like I was saying, that the geometry is really up for grabs here as to how much it closes into the interior or how much it's just a cavernous effect on the outside of the interior. We're going to try and bring this into our interior cone. And actually, before we get too worried about making that a sharp-edged cone, I'm going to add one more. It's quieter here. I'm going to add one more effect into the background. This is kryptonite, and I'm not sure how it's going to behave in this application. I was using Sublime recently and came up with a really nice effect, so I'm curious if this will do something similar. So we're going to come in here and do an application of this color. Sometimes doing quadrants helps because you can see the glass on the other side as you look through from one side to the other. You can see where the other one started, and then you come in here and you're just dividing, trying to kind of come down between those two lines. And yeah, my fingers are getting kind of hot here, close to the fire. That was a little sample piece of that glass, so just kind of want to check it out, see how it behaves inside the interior of the marble. And putting it on there kind of chunky and letting this melt in like this will add some texture, some dimension to those interior petals or veins, or however you want to describe that initial twisted up flat sides. So now, very gently start getting this So I really appreciate anyone that's coming in, stepping into these videos to take a look and see how this process works. For some people, they're getting project ideas for their own marbles. Some people are just appreciating the artwork. But I appreciate any of you that are coming in here and taking a look. So at this point, then I have different ways I could go with the background, and I think I've got quite a bit going on in the interior here. So the plan was I'm just going to go to a straight black background. So I've got some kind of chunky black stringer pulled out here. I'm going to let that base cool down a little bit, so when I apply this backing color, I'm going to try this time to do more or less of a smooth background field of black. Sometimes at this point I'd do some colored frit, even black frit, and then cover it with more black. That way you kind of hide the inconsistency of this next step, but just going to run with this. So the idea here is to get just an even layer of black, and we're doing this with a small stringer size stick. So this first couple passes, I'll do this just straight up against the previous pass and make it just solid. And then I'm going to break away and leave a little gap. And this is typically what I do when I'm trying to just make a field of background color, just like a thin layer. This tip tends to get a little overheated. Alright, then we come back in and fill in those little valleys. And we'll try and imagine this hot glass just filling in that little open valley. Okay, we're kind of short, so we're going to tag another section. The end kind of gets a little funky to try and fill in. I'm kind of going across this a couple times. Sometimes the very end will have kind of an open window, which I don't know how people think about that. But most of the time I prefer not to have a transparent, translucent bottom for that vortex effect. I want it to be kind of sealed off at the end where it's not letting, if light comes in the sides, that's kind of different, but when it's all dark and then you see out the bottom, I'm not really a fan of that look. Although sometimes if you do that well and do it on purpose and you put it on a lighted stand, the light will come up through that open back side. That could be interesting. And that basically has sealed the deal on whatever is on the inside. Okay, at this point, I usually do some fuming that may show up through the back. I do my pattern on the very back side. Sometimes you'll get a little bit of reflection. Sometimes it looks pretty open. You can see all the way into the base, which kind of reveals the interior guts of the thing. Most customers are fascinated. It's like, how do you do that? How does it get that effect? And of course, it's just a simple lens magnifying the interior. Oh. Something happened to my music. Actually, warm this up after a short pause there. So at this point, this clear glass is just going to fill in and convert this cone into a half circle, half of a sphere. Yeah, gotta get my mug of water. I have the schematic of the marble that I'm building right now. It's an anatomy of a Vortex marble design. An old world nerdy approach to the optics of this design. Described as kind of a schematic optical ray tracing. I'm kind of using this kind of knitting action to get some hot glass and then lay it down to push out any air, so I'm not building up any air pockets underneath this clear, hopefully. And we'll heat it up at this point and kind of clean up the ends of this section. Get this very end hot and then kind of push that back. And just keep that one little spot on the end that is left uncovered from the clear. A little toasty there. It's one thing about using these paddles in the flame, you can deflect that and bounce that flame around with the paddle. Not the first time I've seen some hairs on the back of my hand. Let's see, maybe I should use up this stick. I have a couple glass rods set out as punties for the next steps. This one's starting to get a little shorter. So I'll use this for filler glass now. Looking forward to seeing my brother. He's going to show up to visit here in a few days. And he's headed over to Yellowstone Park for a few days, and then he'll swing back this way on his way home. He always likes to come out here in June when things are really pretty up here. Everything's really green. Still some snow in the hills and lots of water in the river. Maybe too much water in the river soon. The river heats up. So various stages like this in glasswork could be pretty messy. Doesn't really matter. Even when it's not totally even in its application, it won't really have much effect. Just heating this up, the glass will flow and do its thing. But that's not to say we can't make some adjustments here, add a little glass in different areas. Yeah, nice mug. You can get one of these in their shop down below, or a t-shirt. We appreciate all the support people give for the channel. And you can see that end peeking out from the clear. That's what you want to see, so that you completely have all the depth you can in this style of configuration. If that end gets covered with clear, the clear tends to will build up a surprisingly thick layer pretty easily over that end, and that can really affect the optical impression of depth. Doesn't seem like it would make much difference, but it does. So at this point I'm kind of building up the lens side of things. Of course, it's pretty much out of control, but just try and get that back to be a more spherical shape, and start accumulating some glass on this front, opening up that window. So the diameter where it's transitioning between the clear lens and the colored section, it starts kind of opening up here when you're doing this. Okay. Now I've got to get this to settle down. Get ready to decorate the back side. So I'm going to do something slightly different than I usually do on the back, where I still have 3 colors that I'm going to use, but I'm going to stack 2 of them. So I'll start with this tan. So we're trying to go a bit thicker than usual and spaced a little tighter. Okay, now we've got some amber purple glass, and I pulled this off of the cane or the original rod of color. I pulled it up a bit at a steep, more or less as vertical as I could, because you want to get this kind of glass heated to the point where it's completely translucent, transparent. And it's kind of hard to pull stringers of it like that because it gets so fluid before it gets to that transparent stage. And pulling out the stringer kind of vertically really helped to be able to draw out a decent diameter stringer, but get it really transparent, really fully heated. Okay, so that's kind of the two lines together, and then I'm going to come back over. I'll leave that first wrap at the edge alone. And I'm coming back over that tan glass with a sparkling green glass, which on its own doesn't tend to show up all that well on this back side, so I'm going to try doing it layered. Okay. Tiresome. So my tungsten picker that I've been using, it was starting to get kind of short, and I thought, oh, I'm going to have to replace this. And I kind of remembered that there's quite a bit of space inside the handle, so when this is a new fresh rod, I'll drop it down inside the handle all the way. But right now I pulled it out on the handle about as far as it, it's just in here an inch or something. And then this vise part, let's see what I'm talking about here. It's hot. The vise part, I wind up using pliers to tighten it because you want it good and tight. So it turned out it was longer than I thought it was. Okay, melt those in and then let that settle down. Probably could just leave it like that. The color looks pretty nice. Alright, let's see if we can make this happen. Some nice waves here. I'll kind of circle back each one of these sweeps. And we'll come down to this end. A little wiggle. And start coming down to the back vertice. There we go. Well, got a little wiggly wobbly on this back side, so we'll just work on getting this back in shape before we try and proceed. Try and ignore the creases in between and just focus on the main rod and the back half, and don't worry about that little section that's got some funky wrinkles going on. Okay. Looking good. Now we're going to condense clear on the front lens and build up kind of an excess amount, because I'm going to rip off the whole face of it to clean it up. Because we've got a lot of glass that's distressed, it's got remnants of fuming. Got some issues. It's always tempting to be kind of in a rush at this step to move on, but I'll make sure I got enough clear on the front here. And then we hit this on the edge of the L marker on top of the torch. One side hot, one side cold. Throw some heat on the hot side. Pretty good groove going in there. Heat up that little short truncheon, stretch out just a little bit until it thins out. And it'll cut through pretty easily. So at this point, all this glass to pull aside. steps like this and wind up pulling with a bit of force. So it's really important that that puntee that I'm hanging on to, that's why I have that. It's pretty much just a full fused puntee. I really don't want to pull it off with a puntee right now. Continue to just skim off this outer layer of glass. I first saw Lauren Stump doing this with soft glass, and I thought, man, that's a lot of glass he's just throwing away. I can liken it to woodwork when you're sanding, metalwork when you're milling. Sometimes there's just stuff you have to do to make the finished product look really cool. Okay. So now I'm heating primarily the lens right up to the transition zone. See if I can get this egg shape to come out of the marble. We use a little fast spinning centripetal force to pull it out. Try and get this front clear lens pretty hot, not just to get the shape going, but actually to try and melt in any little anomalies that show up in the glass there that are just under the surface. Okay, it's kind of time to start forcing around and shaping it. It's going to be a big marble. So big that I have to consider pulling off a bit more glass on this front. So we're going to transfer at this point. Again, that's just fully fused connection there. Instead of any fancy trying to snap off this backside putty, I just melt them off. And then clean up the little blib of glass on the back. I find that a lot more convenient than chasing a loose marble rolling around on the desk and on the floor. Now we just sort of switch this around so we're applying most of the heat to the back side. Let this up at an angle to let it naturally start kind of falling back. So steps like this, you're building a heat base inside. So I do want quite a lot of the glass to move all as one. And I prefer to do it with as minimal amount of tooling as possible. Maybe a little fast spinning here. Okay, come into the marble mold kind of level. And with this kind of matchup, I can roll that with a good bit of pressure. And that just completed 95% of the rounding in one step. So these subsequent steps are a little bit more just wanting to affect the surface. You don't really want the interior to be fluid. So it's pretty well shaped up here. I'm gonna roll it here for a sec and let it cool down. That marble mold is sucking up some of that heat. And the back is doing pretty well in terms of shape and smoothness, so we're just gonna fire polish. And some of that glass has picked up a little carbon from the mold and just kind of burning out that carbon. Alright, looking good. So that interior work is looking pretty thick and chewy at this point. Maybe went a little heavy with the silver, but you know, some of these effects, if you don't do enough, then you're just kind of lost. You didn't really get much effect at all. So it's kind of a fine line trying to figure out how much to use. I think if I did it again, I'd actually use less silver. Just from what I'm seeing right now. So that last punty connection there, that is a bit more of a cold junction. At this point, it's kind of a timing issue. Just like that. That last junction has a shelf life. As the marble, that back end is cooling down. At some point, it gets cool enough that punty is no longer much of a connection. It loses its mechanical strength, so we try hard at this phase to not bump it or disturb it too much. Now the front lens at this point, I mean, visually to me it looks like it's kind of flat. It needs to pull out a little bit. When you get to these late stage steps going into the marble mold, and you want to let that glass kind of skin over. And then we're going to come in really gentle, come up to that front face and get it spinning. And make sure we look along the edge of the marble mold and see that it's filling out all the way. Look at the reflections, see that they're smooth reflections. Good heat on the surface there, and we're just about done. Yeah, I think that will do it. Yeah, some nice hidden areas inside there, deep down inside. It was fun to me to have some kind of deep texture where you have to really kind of look around the corners to see into the bottom. Well, this one went a little faster than some of them. I didn't have any complex prep work. Kind of just jumped right into it. I already did the pulling out the stringers and laying out the glass, which there's quite a few steps go into getting these ready before you even start the video on these. And there we go. I think we are all set for today. It's a beautiful day. The sun's out. It started out pretty chilly this morning, but looking really nice out there now. And this is looking like a beautiful marble. So really glad you all stuck in there if you did, or if you jumped to this point, that's fair enough. Someone asked about, I usually show videos at the beginning and the end, close-ups of the marble is finished, like tomorrow. Pop this in the kiln. And I usually don't focus on the back side, but I'll try and do an image maybe on the back side in this ending right in a minute. But I also have the full video showing off the marble that's on my channel, William Grout channel, and I'll have a link of that marble in the description below. So anywho, you all take care of yourselves, and as always, be kind to yourself, be kind to everyone around you, and we will see you next time.